What's up, world? Welcome to
Sir.
another edition of RiOT Comedy Podcast. You're on with Ichi and Money. RiOT Comedy Podcast presented by RiOT Water. Shout out to RiOT, keeping us hydrated and healthy. Got a lot of things to talk about today. Olympic basketball results for exhibition against Canada. We got some Trae Young rumors floating around. We'll talk about the Lakers, of course, and a couple other things. Let's get to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Game one, USA versus Canada. What's your initial thought?
Well, we won, which is what we were supposed to do. It took a quarter and a half to get our stuff together. It went exactly how it's supposed to. It's an exhibition, no big deal. Just play a little bit of basketball, try to win. The starting lineup was insane, as social media would lead you to suggest, and I think a lot of people out there are just like, start the biggest names or whatever. But at the end of the day, we saw what happened whenever the true hoopers got in the game. We saw what happened.
Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting because, like, with that starting lineup that we saw out there, and then, you know, if people don't know, it was like Jrue Holiday, Devin Booker, LeBron, Steph, and Joel. And I guess you can't really knock the starting lineup. It's not like you can sit there and say, like, these guys suck, because they don't. They're obviously all-stars, all of them across the board.
You can knock the starting lineup. You can knock it. You can't knock these guys as individual basketball players because they're all hoopers. There's a reason they're all on the Olympic team. But that's like unbelievable who Steve Kerr started. It's absolutely ridiculous to start. Number one, you're starting Devin Booker over Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is a basketball player, and he's more of a menace. He's better at basketball, and he's a menace. Like, you start that guy over Devin Booker 10 times out of 10, no matter the situation, no matter who your matchup is.
Well, what's interesting is, like, when you look at the starting lineup that he played, my biggest thing with it is you're playing directly into European teams' hands by playing slow guys.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not playing super athletes. So you're just basically just like playing it right into their hand of, like, our starting five, maybe not quite as athletic as your guys' starting five, but the starting five that we're playing, like, we're as athletic as you guys now. Like, most European countries got a gigantic body to throw on Joel Embiid. Like, most of these guys can match up decent. You can't match up against AD and Ant and LeBron and some of these other freak athletes that we have. So that's my biggest concern is, like, at the end of the day, we can run this starting five out there and win the Olympics. That's not what this is about. It doesn't make me terrified that we're going to lose the Olympics. But what it does do is make me question why we're starting who we're starting, and is there ulterior motives to start who we're starting, or is there anything in the background that we're not seeing?
Real talk.
Because it doesn't make sense.
This is the thing. I don't think that starting lineup, if, you know, that was your running core, you're just running every game with that, like, they somehow miraculously don't lose energy. But, like, I wouldn't be surprised if that team didn't win the gold. Like, you have no dogs on the court. Yeah, like, LeBron and Steph are killers, but they're not dogs. You need dudes out there with some serious attitude, because you're playing against dudes who are playing with way more pride than you are.
Correct.
And you have a target on your back. Like, Steve Kerr knows, like, when you're the champs, you have a target on your back. Everyone is gunning for you every night, and they're bringing their absolute A game, and that's what the USA faces every time we play international basketball. I also think Steve Kerr should have been fired after last year. I think if you are a coach, if you're coaching an USA basketball team and you don't win first place, you should not be coaching that team anymore, no matter what.
Correct.
Like, there's no excuses. We have the best talent pool. It's by far. Come on, like. Well, and my thing is, like, it's got me questioning does Steve Kerr does he not know how to coach a regular basketball team that guys play positions, or does he only know how to coach positionless basketball?
Well, it's just have the best coach in the NBA coach the Olympic team. Like, I don't think there's anything else to even say there except for, like, the best coach in the NBA who does more with less is Eric Spoelstra. There's no comparison. Everybody knows who the best coach in the NBA. Like, obviously, Greg Popovich gets to be the best coach in the NBA because of what he's accomplished. But as of right now, every single NBA team, besides the Spurs, will replace their head coach with Spoelstra in the background if they had the chance to do so. So you should have Spoelstra out there. And, like, the way that you should run this team is you should have Ant. And, like, my original starting five lineup I told you about was just pure athleticism. Because you had, like, Bam, AD, Ant, LeBron, Steph. You go out there and you hammer these guys athletically, and then once you start hammering these guys athletically, then you bring in Jrue Holiday, then you bring in Tatum, then you bring in JoJo, and then you bring in whoever else you want to bring into the mix at that point, and then you step on them at that point. Then you bring in the ruthless defenders
Absolutely.
that we have, and you step on them at that point. You go up by 20 points in the first half. You bring in the second unit, and then you demoralize them with just brute fouls and just being bigger and stronger than them and having more dog. And then you win every game by 35 points. But at the end of the day,
that's what you should be doing.
We're not going to have a lot to talk about, I don't think, regardless, just in the same sense of
for sure.
We're gonna beat the shit out of everybody. And then the most interesting thing I think with the Olympic basketball is that we went and got another guard for some reason when we got rid of Kawhi. And it makes no sense. Like, you can say what you want. Like, was Jaylen Brown snubbed? Duh. There's no reason to leave the Finals MVP off of an Olympic team when they want to play for it. It's not like Jaylen Brown was like, "Nah, I'm straight."
You picked one of his teammates. You picked one of his teammates who's like the 4th or 5th best guy on the team,
right?
And a guy who's like not even in the top 30, 40 NBA players probably.
There's a guy on every single NBA team better than Derek White. There's a guy on every single team better than Derek White.
Absolutely.
It'd be impossible not to have a player on your team better than Derek White.
Facts.
So it's one of those things where,
if we're being real, like Jaylen Brown. I mean, you can't criticize Nike and then make the Olympic team because Nike has too much pull in USA basketball. They run the show, really. Like,
correct.
So that's what it is. So,
but that's the thing, though, is that like the Olympics in general, we have to deal with something that most other teams don't have to deal with. Like, there is no way that all these other international coaches are dealing with having to rest guys, having to make sure they're not hurt, trying to fucking hurt a brand that makes billions of dollars. Like, our coaches have to worry about that. Like, Steve Kerr is told.
There's a lot that goes into coaching the Olympics.
It's told, like, hey, dude, like, we can't, like, Joel Embiid can't be hurt. Hey, man, Kawhi Leonard, get him off the team because if he plays in the Olympics, he probably won't be able to start the season for the Clippers. These are all things that he has to deal with. Yeah. And in the same regard, like, I don't feel bad for you. I'm not saying that that's like a hard position to be in. You should be able to play all these guys 20 minutes a night out of the 40 minutes, play each of them 20 minutes. And that's the thing about this, like, it makes it kind of hard to do rotations. Like, if somebody plays 10 minutes, that's a whole quarter. It's not like in the NBA, somebody plays 10 minutes, and then you bring in the second unit, and then they play the last 2 minutes, and then maybe the first 4 minutes of the next half, of the next quarter, then you bring your starters back in.
There's a lot of games. 8 more minutes of game time is a lot of game to get
so in this regard, like, that should just play into our hands even more. That we can play our bet, like playing let's just say 30 minutes even. Playing 30 minutes even for an NBA player is easy. That's not very long. If you look at some guy in the NBA and he's only played 30 minutes a game, like, that's not very long compared to 48 minutes. So we should be able to.
Everyone plays 36 to 40 minutes. All the stars, you know.
Correct, which is like almost a full basketball game in the Olympics. So, like, in theory, like, I'm sorry, I know that some of these guys want to play and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, not everybody can play.
No, I'm with you. It doesn't matter. This isn't a participation thing. We're here to win a gold medal, and that's it. And like, if you're the coach, you got to do whatever is best to win that, even if it means like there's a dude or two on the team who, like, you might not even get in this game.
Right. And my thing about it is, too, is,
I'm
like,
not here to appease your ego. I'm here to win a gold medal.
Play the hungriest guys too. Like, let's be honest. Like, I love LeBron. Like,
that's my whole thing.
More than anybody.
That's my whole thing, man.
I love him as much as anybody else, dog. But, like, do you even care if you win gold? Like, obviously you joined the team because you were trying to give us the redemption and you wanted gold because of what happened in FIBA. Nobody's saying, like, you don't want to win gold. But what kind of desire is there compared to, like, a Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards? Even, like, we didn't bring this guy on, but, like, Jalen Brunson would have been out there trying as hard as he can to get us a gold.
Yeah.
I can watch that game and tell you right now that LeBron James ain't out there trying as hard as he can because he's 40. So
yeah,
that's fair. Like, there's a fair argument.
The thing
there.
is, though, like, LeBron. So LeBron also knows that, like, he can manage the game and win it, and he doesn't have to do a ton of things. But honestly, like, that's not how we should be playing Olympic basketball. We should be running these fools off the court in the first 6 minutes of the game. These fools should be defeated. Like, when we played Canada, they should have never thought for one moment that they could have won that game because they were thinking, like, we can beat this team.
For sure.
Now, granted, when Steve Kerr put in people that we were saying the whole time he should have played, like AD and Ant, they went in there and ran away with it.
Correct.
But, like, the game should have been over immediately. Like, you need to be every single person on every other team that you play 5-6 minutes into the game should just look defeated. They should be waiting for the game to be over.
Yeah, they need to know.
That's what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
That's what we should be doing.
We'll see. I mean, these are just exhibition games. I don't think Steve Kerr keeps that starting lineup out there. to be honest with you. Like, there's
Better
also a
not.
chance
Better not.
that he might be playing possum. I don't know. Like, Steve Kerr's a wild dude. Like, he might literally play like a
True.
wild-ass starting five the whole exhibition series, and then when the Olympics start, switch everything up. Because I'm not going to
He
sit
might
here
do
and say
that.
that Steve Kerr's not a good basketball coach. So, like, anybody that wanted to, like, knock Steve Kerr super heavy and be like, oh, this, that, or the other, like, dude's a 4-time champion in the NBA, and people can say he had Steph, he had KD, whatever. Knock this dude if you want for that, I guess. But at the end of the day, you still got to win the championships. We've seen stacked teams not win, and he won again after all those guys, after KD left and all these guys were getting older. So I'm not going to sit here and knock Steve Kerr. Dude's a hell of a basketball coach, but I can sit here and say the move that you made wasn't very good, and it was not very good.
He is, but when you're coaching a team like this and you have a target on your back, there's certain players who should not be starting the game, and there's certain players who should be starting the game, and he should know which one is which.
So, in your mind, who should we have replaced Kawhi with? You think Jaylen Brown was the obvious choice just because they play the same position? They play similar basketball. They play very similar style of basketball. It would have been kind of a seamless fit. So, do you think Jaylen Brown should have been the guy to get the nod?
I don't know if it necessarily should have been Jaylen Brown. I just know there's 30 American players at least in the NBA that are better than Derek White. So we could have got one of those guys.
So how do we like? Here's my thing about the Olympics. Like, I hear all these fucking people talking about criteria of the Olympic team, which there is no criteria to make the Olympic team. There's no criteria. I've heard people say Kyrie Irving should have been on it because he has an Olympic gold medal. Like, yeah, if you played for America, you have an Olympic gold medal. That doesn't mean that you should make the team. Like, I'm not knocking Kyrie. He'd have been on my Olympic team, promise. But to replace Kawhi Leonard, like, what kind of criteria do we have except for being voted the best player in your conference finals and the NBA finals? You were voted the best player in both of those series. You were voted the best player.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't fit criteria, like, we make new criteria for everything. Like, everything just has random criteria. It's like the MVP criteria changes every year. The defensive player of the year criteria changes every year. Everything changes all the time. In reality, it's just a way for fucking people like the media to get their way, and then the way for corporations to get their way. Like, it's just bullshit.
There's nothing worse. It's unbearable watching the NBA MVP discussion every single year. Like, you got these media members who don't know nothing about nothing. Even, okay, a day or two ago, the ESPYs, Luka won Basketball Player of the Year. He finished third in MVP voting. Most of these guys are the same people voting on these things.
Who finished second?
I don't remember. Also, even look at like 2013 Defensive Player of the Year, Marc Gasol. Defensive Player of the Year, but you made second team all defense. Same people voting for these awards.
Correct.
And then the narrative changes every year for the MVP, like you just said. Like, we had to watch, like, you know, people win whenever it's like, oh, well, winning matters. Best player on the best team, give it to him. But then we also had to watch, like, Jokic get a 5 seed and win MVP. So how does that make sense? How does the criteria change year to year?
I saw somebody the other day talking shit on Wemby winning Rookie of the Year because his team finished really, really low in the standings, and Chet Holmgren's finished number 1. And it's like, number 1, Chet Holmgren, call him a rookie if you want, but the dude was under the OKC Thunder for a whole entire year before he played. That shit matters. You were with an NBA training staff for a year. Not only that, the Rookie of the Year's team is probably not going to be very good most of the time because they were probably drafted in the top 5 every single year.
Here's what you have to do. You have to just try to analyze it like this. Swap Chet and Wemby. I promise you the Spurs win the same amount or less games with Chet on the team. They still suck. It ain't like Chet's the one out there making OKC good. He plays with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that dude is an absolute baller.
I'd be willing to bet every dollar I got you switch Chet and fucking Wemby, that fucking OKC Thunder would have went to the finals.
They're absolutely. I'm with you on that.
They would have went to the finals. 100%. So,
and Chet's he's a hooper, and he's going to keep getting, like, he's going to be really fun to watch in the years to come. But, like, as of right now, it's Wemby, no question.
Here's the thing is that, like, Rookie of the Year is not a team award. Most Valuable Player is not a team award. These are not team awards. Like, should you win some games as the MVP? Nobody's saying you shouldn't. Nobody's saying you shouldn't make the playoffs. Nobody's saying that you can be on a bad team and win MVP. But what we're saying is if you win 50, if you win 50 plus games in the NBA, then you can win MVP. You don't need to win 60. You don't need to be the number 1 seed. Because let's be honest, like, we changed the criteria this year just so Shai couldn't have it. Based on criteria
100%.
that we heard over the
100%.
last fucking 5 years for bullshit, like Russell Westbrook had to fucking average a triple-double and get the 5 seed with no All-Stars on his team to get an MVP. Joker just had to.
And the
Joker
thing is,
just had to go out there and play basketball.
no, numbers matter with MVP, but the media sometimes they want to act like they don't, but they want to act like they do whenever they want to give it to their guy. So like again, whenever Jokic won it, when he got like the 5 seed or whatever, putting up good numbers and get this bummy team to the playoffs, like okay, so that's an instance when numbers matter. But then when Steph wins it in 2015, he's not putting up MVP numbers. He shouldn't have won MVP that year.
Correct.
Like you're averaging 23 and 7. Those are not MVP numbers. You are not the MVP. Now, are you a super duper star? And did you absolutely deserve the unanimous MVP the next year? Yeah, absolutely. But 23 and 7 is not MVP numbers. You better win 75 games if you're going to win MVP with 23 and 7.
Agreed. So like, and it's not like Shea was out here putting up 23 points, and like they didn't give him the MVP. I just got done 31. I got 31 points per game for an
31
NBA
and
season.
the 1 seed in the West.
And he probably played, if I had to guess, he sat out some towards the end. I bet you he played, I didn't do any research, 65 games probably is what he played to 70 games this year. And got over 30 points per game.
All NBA team, right? So he had to get his 65 games in. So.
Right, and he also finished, and he also got the 1 seed in the West, and they're the youngest team in NBA history to ever get a 1 seed in the NBA.
How was that not the season MVP? That makes
How is that
no
not the most valuable player is taking the youngest team in the NBA to be a one? Like, only MVPs can do that. Only MVPs can do that. Plain and simple. So
the thing is, like,
this game that we're playing is not fucking fair because it also plays with players' money.
Ridiculous. Absolutely, it's ridiculous.
It's playing with their money, dude. And it's not an okay thing to do.
We could do a whole podcast on how terrible the NBA media is and how they don't know nothing about basketball and they always get it wrong.
Don't know shit. And like, you know, I heard some arguments today that Jason Tatum is a top 5 player in the league, right?
Absolutely not.
And it was frustrating for me because they were like the first thing they opened up on was like, well, take away the fact that he didn't win Finals MVP. And it's like, okay, well, let's take away the fact that Well, let's take away the fact that LeBron blew the championship against the Mavericks then. Let's just take that away then.
Right. Yeah.
And now he gets to be the GOAT. Like that's not how this works. Like when you're splitting hairs about the best players in the NBA, these are the things that it actually comes down to. When we talk about all-time greats, if Charles Barkley had 2 NBA championships, he would be arguably the greatest power forward of all time.
Yeah.
But it's never even discussed. Because he doesn't. So if we're just going to take shit like that out, well, then Karl Malone's the greatest power forward ever. Let's just fine then. He scored 35,000 points. He was getting it, and he's the oldest MVP ever. Like these are the things that like make me frustrated, is because we create a different narrative for every player that we want to. We want Jason Tatum as a top 5 player, so we're going to make shit up about how he's a top 5 player. And I think Tatum's dope. Like I think Tatum's a top 10 player in the league. I think he's top 10.
Top 10 for sure. Not top 5. Not even in the conversation.
Not top 5.
This dude's been to the finals twice. He pooped the bed the first time, and the second time he played well, but not exceptional by any measure.
No, and I understand he led his team in points, rebounds, and assists in the finals, which is impressive. You led your team in points, rebounds, and assists.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the finals. And you are the best player on the Celtics. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to dive into this. Like, Jaylen Brown's their best player. That's not true.
I agree.
However, though, when you look at the finals, Jaylen Brown's the one who led the charge at the beginning to gain the momentum of the series.
Absolutely.
And he just won the ESPY.
Aspects of the game. There's aspects of the game that Jaylen Brown is better at than Jason Tatum.
For sure.
And I think here's a big thing, and this is what I also love about Anthony Edwards, and he's one of the best in the NBA at this. But there's certain guys who know the situation of the game. And there's certain moments in the game where you say, we have to have a bucket. And then there's other situations in the game when a guy says, I have to get us a bucket. And most guys don't know the difference in the situation. Jaylen Brown is great at recognizing that. Anthony Edwards is great at recognizing that. Those dudes, that's why Jaylen Brown should be on the Olympic team, because he's a dog. He's a menace. He's a killer. And he knows that situation. Him and Anthony Edwards out there on the perimeter wreaking havoc on defense would be fun to watch.
Agreed 1,000%.
It'd be like that's like your poor man's MJ and Scotty wreaking havoc on the perimeter on these international players.
1,000%.
Again,
And then
very
if you
poor
wanted
man's
to,
version of those guys, but
because you could, if you wanted to, and if we put Jaylen Brown on that team instead of Kawhi, you could have a 5-man lineup out there of Drew Holiday, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, Bam, and AD, and nobody's going to score. Not a single fucking team in the Olympics can score on that roster.
Have a tough time with that.
Not a single one. So you can have like these playful lineups. So if you would like, it just is what it is. USA basketball is going to do what they're going to do, and Nike's going to control a lot of the narratives around that. So we can kind of just leave it there because we know what kind of the outcome of the Olympics. What I'm more curious about is, like, I know we said we're going to bring up the Lakers, and it's not because they're the Lakers. It's because LeBron plays for them, everybody. And everybody wants to see LeBron in the playoffs because it's good for views. It's good for it's good for everything,
Absolutely.
guys. Just let you know, it's better for everybody involved, even fans just watching. So we can at least, so you can either talk shit on LeBron or love LeBron, but it's good for everything. So what's the move?
Everyone does one or the other.
What's the move that the Lakers can make now that you feel comfortable with, that's like this makes them a contender? I don't think there's a single move that makes them the favorite to win it all. But what's the move that they should make to make them at least a contender? Legit.
They have to get a guy who can get easy buckets.
Yeah.
They have to, because there's dudes who can get easy buckets who don't have to work super hard to get them because they're fast or flashy or they got a handle, whatever it may be. They like even I don't think it's gonna happen. I think it's almost 0% chance. But if they could somehow pull off a Trae Young trade, I think Trae Young on the Lakers would be great. But that's the thing. They have to get a guy who can get an easy bucket because they don't have anyone that can get an easy bucket right now. Like, yeah, LeBron can, like, shoot over top of people, but, like, that's not, like, the same as an easy bucket.
Correct.
Even though, like, he's still great and makes everything. Like, he still shoots 50% from the floor. Like, it's not the same whenever he has to work a little bit harder for his bucket, where it may take LeBron 8 seconds to get his bucket. You need a dude who can pop him off like that.
Well, here's something that's really interesting, too, is that, like, this next NBA draft is pretty stacked. Like, the next draft, everybody's real interested in the next draft, which means that teams that are just kind of sucky want to fucking suck bad. Like, they're ready to go win 17 games.
Absolutely.
So if you're the Lakers, this is a perfect opportunity for you to start going to poach either great role players or a great player, one of the two.
Yeah.
And the Trae Young makes so much sense. And Trae Young was just ranked on Bleacher Report. This was either the start of this year or after the year. Don't know when the article came out, but it was in the last 12 months that he was the 36th best basketball player in the NBA was Trae Young, which makes no sense whatsoever. You're talking about a guy that has the potential to lead the NBA in points and assists in the same season. It's only been done one time ever. Yeah. And if you had to say there's one guy in the NBA that can do it, it's fucking Trae Young. He's the only guy that could do it. He's the only guy that we think can do it. And he took the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals when he was young, and nobody wants to talk about the fact that as soon as they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, the Atlanta Hawks did not want to pay a tax bill, and instead of re-signing a lot of these guys that got them to the Eastern Conference Finals, they dismantled this team and then added a terrible, terrible second option on their team as far as pairing Trae Young up with somebody. Love DeJounte.
Yeah.
Think DeJounte Murray has a place
he's a hooper.
on any basketball
that dude's
team.
A hooper.
But you should never pair him and Trae Young.
That's just not a good pairing. That's just
not a good
sometimes
pairing.
Things don't fit.
Not unless you have Wemby on your team do you pair those two guys together.
Real talk.
Not unless
Real
you have
that
caliber of center, and you just need two guys who can orchestrate an offense and get them the ball in the paint. And shoot threes. Like that's a different animal there entirely. But when you have this team that's so guard heavy, like these two guys have to orchestrate everything. Points, they have to do not rebounds, but points, assists, orchestrating the offense. Like you're just redundant. It's just redundancy.
Yeah, their games are too similar. You can't pair dudes who play like that together.
It makes it very easy to guard.
They don't have to have the ball in their hand.
There's no defensive adjustments.
Absolutely.
You make one defensive, like this is the defense that should work, and you can keep it the whole game, and you'll beat them. So that's the problem that they're having. I mean, Lakers, I've heard rumors of Zach LaVine going to the Lakers just because, like, the Lakers would probably get picks for Zach LaVine. They'd probably get picks in return. And you can say what you want about Zach LaVine. His injury history is kind of overblown. But this dude played like 7 years in Chicago and averaged like 24 points a game and shot 38% from three and like 85 from free throw and shot like 47% from the floor. Those aren't numbers that are just like them shits ain't Reggie, dog. Like those are serious numbers. So I don't know if I like the trade for the Lakers because it doesn't solve the problem of LeBron James having the ball in his hands all the time, being super slow, and trying to orchestrate the offense almost to a detriment.
Yeah.
Trae Young solves
Yeah.
that problem. I also thought that DeJounte Murray would have solved that. And like if you're the Lakers and you're not going to go get Trae Young because you don't want to mortgage your future, even though it does solidify you as a playoff team for the next 6 years with him and AD. It does solidify you as being good at basketball for a while. Then you need to go get like an Anthony Simmons or sign like a Gary Trent. Like there's moves out there to be made, and I don't know what the Lakers are doing right now. I don't necessarily care either at the end of the day what the Lakers decide to do, but you need to do something, at least have your fans mildly excited. But Lakers fans will think that they're good enough to win the championship this year regardless.
Yeah.
They'll come up with
You know what's funny? I think it's super funny that we're talking about the Lakers, and you mentioned like Gary Trent Jr. Whenever literally 4 or 5 days ago we had an episode where Rob Palenka was like, "I think I can get us Gary Trent Jr." and LeBron's like, "Gary fucking Trent."
Yeah, dude can hoop though.
But I mean, like for real, like Gary Trent would be a pretty fire pickup for the Lakers. But it's just not going to be enough as far as like getting past these teams like. Minnesota, OKC, Dallas, these
it's not
top
enough
tier teams right now.
But like nobody's gonna sign that dude. Like nobody's gonna sign
you're
like
better.
Gary Trent. What do you say?
You're better if you get him though.
No, like that's the thing. Nobody's gonna sign Gary Trent Jr. for a bunch of money because money's pretty much spent now. So like, can you convince him to come play? Like he's gonna have to. Like you're gonna have to tell him, like, dude, you're gonna start. But that's the problem. Is like if you tell Gary Trent Jr. he's gonna start. He can't start on the Lakers as they're currently constructed. Like, you don't take Austin Reeves out of the starting lineup for Gary Trent, even though they're like the same good, in my opinion. Like, I don't think Austin Reeves is better than Gary Trent Jr. by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. But Austin Reeves has earned a starting spot for the Lakers, and he should get to keep it. So you have this D'Angelo Russell contract you can trade. I think that they should definitely be open to trading Austin Reeves, me personally. Like, he should not be untouchable. That's an asinine thing to do, make him untouchable. That's what he's for. That's what guys like Austin Reeves are for getting better.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what that move is. I think it's Trae Young. I think they should just go all in for Trae Young. Like, the Hawks have already come to the realization that they're not going to get a lot for him. They know now.
Yeah.
They now know.
Sticking with Trae Young, if not the Lakers, where do you think he ends up? Where would you like to see him end up?
Before CP3 went to the Spurs, I wanted Trae with the Spurs real bad. Yeah, like, that's what I wanted more than anything. I wanted him there more than anything, especially since the Spurs had the cap space to absorb his contract, essentially, and not really send anything out. I do like what the Spurs did this offseason, though, because they got Chris Paul, which was a decent pickup for them. They got Harrison Barnes and somehow got a first-round pick with him, which is wild.
I know. Yeah,
fleece the shit out of that
Harrison
deal.
Barnes for the Spurs.
Fleece the shit out of that deal. So I like what they're doing.
Yeah.
As far as Trae Young going somewhere, though, where it makes sense, it makes the team better. That I can't really pinpoint because there's a lot of teams out there that could use him, but they don't have the cap. As far as realistic options go of where he should go and make that team much, much better, oh, man, maybe Houston. Maybe Houston. I think that might be a decent pairing for him.
What about Orlando?
I don't know if he fits with what Orlando actually needs. I think he makes Orlando better. I think he does make Orlando better. It's just, what do you have to give up to get Trae Young? Is that going to gut a lot of your second unit? Does it make it worth it?
But that's the thing is with a trade like that.
But you do have KCP and you do have Jalen Suggs. So those guys can make up a lot of defensive deficiencies for Trae Young, which I think is important, whoever goes and gets him. I like Orlando. I like Miami more.
I think Trae Young on I do too, but I think Trae Young on Orlando would be fire. I'm expecting Paolo to take another. He took a huge step this past season. Like, Paolo's a baller, and I think next season he's going to be really fun to watch. So to watch him play with, add another sniper on the team in your backcourt, him and KCP, I think that would be a pretty fun squad to watch.
I think, as far as Trae Young going somewhere, you just have to look at like fringe playoff teams that got bounced out in the first round, things like that. I thought Trae Young to the Pelicans before DeJounte went there made a lot of sense with him.
Yeah.
And Zion.
I was
And
thinking the Pelicans were the first team that came to mind, but it's like, oh yeah, they literally just got the dude we said he shouldn't be paired with.
exactly, yeah. So that doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, I think the Lakers make sense. I think the Clippers make sense for Trae Young, so they can get a young
Yeah,
guy in
same.
there who's not old with bad knees and try to build something around
But
Trae.
then if you got Trae Young, then you just got Trae Young out there with Kawhi sitting on the bench injured, and then you just suck, and Trae Young's in another bad situation.
No, right. But if you're the Clippers, at least you fucking don't have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard as your two best players. Like you got to
Yeah,
start
I
somewhere.
feel
You got
I
to start
feel you.
building shit up from somewhere. And I don't really know
Absolutely.
where Trae Young can go to make these teams way better because he is kind of a unique player in the sense of like you do need to have a team constructed to go with him. You know, like the
Yeah,
team that makes the most sense for him to go to that's impossible is Minnesota. Him and Ant together would make a ton of sense because Ant
yeah.
can guard anybody. Their second unit's super defensive oriented. I don't know, like, because obviously Mike Conley's there. But yeah, Trae Young going somewhere is he's a difficult player to put somewhere that makes a ton of sense. But I think Orlando, Houston, Lakers, I think those three teams make the most sense for him.
Yeah.
And speaking of teams that, you know, because like the Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes is really heating up. And if you're the Jazz and you can get like 4 first-round picks for this guy in a pick swap, I think you should take it. Just because I love Lauri Markkanen's game. I think he's a hooper, and I think he'll get better. But I just don't think that if you're the Jazz, why? Why have him? He's going to make sure you win 30 games a season, and you're picking between.
Yeah, he's just going to get you a better or a worse draft pick. That's
right,
all he's going to do.
He's just going to make it to where you pick between 8 and 12 every year instead of picking in the top 2 or 3. So if you can get 5 first-round picks for him, I think it makes sense. So in that regard, like who should go all in for Lauri Markkanen, and it actually makes them pushing contender status?
I don't think it makes them a contender next year, but in a couple years, I think if we had Wemby paired with another 7-footer, then I think I would love to see that. So that would be my first like choice, but I think honestly I kind of think the Lakers could use him because I like AD running at the 4 where he likes to be. When the Lakers won their championship in 2020, they had more bigs. Like being big, having a big team in the NBA is very beneficial. But I also think, you know, going back to Orlando again, who's their center right now?
Well, they have a plethora of bigs there. I don't think that they need him just because like they have both the Wagner boys. They got Jonathan Isaac. They got Paolo. Like they're pretty stacked at the big man position, at the power forward center. Those they need a guard more than anything. They need like a really
They
good
need
guard
a guard more than anything.
So they need that more than anything. I think the team that Lauri Markkanen actually helped.
Like, who are those teams? Who are those teams that are like on the fringe who need a really good big who's 7 foot?
I think him having a reunion with the Cavs makes the most sense.
I could go for that.
Like, I understand they have a Twin Tower situation over there, which is cool. I get that shit, man. But like, Mobley and Jared Allen, they clog a lot of shit up. And if you're gonna run this situation with Donovan Mitchell and what's their point guard's name? Why can't I remember it? For the Cavs.
I can really see his face.
Garland,
yeah.
So if you're going to run Garland and Mitchell together, and both those guys like to penetrate, kick, get to the rim, things like that, I think that getting rid of Jared Allen, I would keep Mobley if I could, just because he's a better defender than Jared Allen, and he's a little bit younger, and his big contract hasn't kicked in yet. It'd be easier for them to trade Jared Allen for Markkanen, and I think that trade also makes sense for the Jazz because the Jazz could then send out Kessler for a first-round pick to somebody, and I think that they would be able to like kind of compound some of these things into more picks. But I like Lauri on the Cavs because I like him paired up with Mobley. I like him paired up with Donovan Mitchell. I think that that's the team that should swing for the fences for Markkanen. It's not really talked about. They're not going to do it either. The Cavs are very content with their big 4. When in reality, it's very redundant. Their 2 guards that they covet play the same way, and their 2 bigs that they covet play pretty similar as well. So they have some redundancy there. When they have no wing play whatsoever. They have no 3-and-D wing play whatsoever. And that's what's
Yeah.
continuously hurt them in the playoffs is they can't fucking guard no big wings that are good.
Hey.
And they can't make shots if Donovan Mitchell's not scoring 40 and orchestrating everything. So they need to do something to take a little bit of pressure off Donovan Mitchell, because Donovan Mitchell's knees weren't burnt out last year because he's injury prone. They were burnt out because the dude's doing too fucking much.
You know who could really use a good big that knows how to play basketball and can get a little bit of buckets? You know who could use that? Dallas.
Yeah, they just don't have the resources, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They got no resources. Their resources are spitting the fuck up.
Yeah.
They got nothing. That well's dry. They are living and dying with this team. So, and that's the thing about the Cavs. I don't know how much they have left to give up either. Donovan Mitchell pretty much ran them dry. That trade's kind of old now, though. I mean, he's probably been there for 3 years now, so they should have some picks back. But at the same time, like, they keep kind of making small acquisitions.
The contracts are always so complicated. Like, every single scenario we've thrown out, who knows if that's even possible? We really need Bob Myers here to break it down. Like, yo, you guys, you can't. That's not possible to happen. Like, we need someone who's more knowledgeable on the way the contracts work and the CBA and everything.
But I do know the Spurs can almost do whatever they want because they have picks, they have the cap space, they have the players to trade. I'm with you in the fact that, like, if you're the Spurs and having Wemby and Markkanen together, and, like, I don't know if people know this about Lauri Markkanen, but that motherfucker, he put the hammer down on a motherfucker, too. Like, that dude don't mind going down in the paint and facialing a motherfucker either. So I think that makes a lot of sense for the Spurs as well. I like that move as well.
That's why I love him on the Spurs, because when you have Wemby's 7'4".
Yeah.
When you got to play two bigs, one of them is 7'4" and he can run the floor and he's an athlete, and then the other big is a 7-footer who's like stout. He's a wall. Like, that's a lot to deal with for any team.
Correct.
That's a lot.
So that would make a lot of sense, especially if you're the Spurs and you like keep Harrison Barnes, you keep Chris Paul, you bring in Lauri, you can somehow keep Devin Vassell or Vassal or however you say the Frenchman's name. I think he's French. However you say that homeboy's name. If you can keep Devin and CP3 and Harrison Barnes, and then you have Wemby and Lauri, you're a guaranteed playoff team now. Absolutely. You are guaranteed to go to the playoffs, and I think that they can make it to the second round of the playoffs with that squad. I really, with Pop coaching them, like, that team is fucking dangerous. So I like that. I like that a lot. So, I mean, we're running a little bit low on time. We're at almost 40 minutes already. Jesus Christ. Are we doing a dunk of the day?
Flying talking NBA.
I know.
Hell yeah, we can do the dunk of the day.
We got a dunk of the day for everybody.
New segment we got for you guys. Money's dunk of the day coming up.
Money's dunk of the day.
On the next podcast, as long as Money's still down for it.
I'm down. Fuck it.
All right, cool. So this is what we're gonna do on the next podcast. We're gonna start taking submissions for tattoo ideas through the rest of the season, the rest of this podcast season, and Money will decide which one of the tattoos he's gonna get out of all the guest submissions, or not the guest submissions, but the viewer submissions. So, y'all,
I will do that. I will do that.
He will do it, and I just want to say one thing real quick. To all the viewers, please do not submit any good ideas.
I don't even care anymore, dog. I got so many tattoos, don't even matter anymore. They don't even matter
hide
anymore.
It pretty easily if you put it in the right spot. You could get a tattoo that would, you wouldn't even notice it with. It would blend in with the rest.
For sure, dude. Like, I got damn near a short sleeve shirt on when I take my shirt off. It don't even matter. I'll just squeeze it in somewhere on my chest, and like you'll never even fucking see it.
There you go. You put it on your side or like right next to your big back piece, whatever. You figure something out.
I got both my sides. The right side's not done. The left side has some shit down the side. I couldn't fit anything there by my back, but it'd be close. I could probably squeeze it in. I could put it on. This is what'll happen. I could put it on my Luscious V.
You could do that. We'll probably have a ton of like super funny submissions all year, and then towards the end of the season, someone will come in with just a fire ass drawing of something awesome that you'll end up getting, and your tattoo won't even be fun. It'll just be like, damn, one of our fans drew this, and this is amazing.
Well, we'll let people know though that big giant submissions are not going to be even remotely looked at by me because I'm getting too damn old. I've spent probably 100 hours in a tattoo chair in my life, and I don't get long tattoos anymore. My back piece took. Like, I did it every Thursday for 4 weeks in a row and did it for 6 hours every single fucking Thursday for a month. So I don't sit in chairs I don't sit in chairs for very long anymore, everybody. I'm a bit of a pussy now, so those days are behind me. And then if you guys watch Money's Dunk of the Day, you guys will also get to see my son for a split second. So none of you perverts out there be pulling pud to my son. You hear me?
That's a wrap on this episode of the RiOT Comedy Podcast. We appreciate y'all rocking with us.
Yeah, we
Stay tuned
holla.
for
We
more.
be back. Deuces.